Welcome back to Kimberley Stories here on 693 AM. We have in our studio today somebody who spent the last 20 years of her life serving our community in one way or another. Firstly with the Army Reserves just after finishing high school, and then she became a community worker or a volunteer in serving in a whole range of different fields. Natasha, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You were born in Wyndham.
Born in Wyndham.
But
I never actually lived there, just born there. And then my parents at that time were living in Halls Creek. So we were actually there probably for the first 6 years of my life.
In Halls Creek, yeah.
In Halls Creek.
You had a fairly large family. You're the eldest of four.
I'm the eldest of four children. I have two brothers and one sister. So I've always been, I guess, leadership. I've always been sort of I've always been very responsible, I guess, and happy to, do things that are a little bit out of the norm and not be afraid. I don't think I'm a person that is dominated by fear. I'm actually very much a faith person.
That came to you, your faith, through a family member, your mum's brother-in-law, is that right?
Yes, he was an itinerant preacher at that time, and he was visiting us in Halls Creek, and I guess, Shankar, that was my introduction to God. So for me, God has always been very real. I've never had any doubt that He exists.
I want to ask you a quick question. When you say that you're from the Jaru people,
yeah,
what does that mean for someone who doesn't understand how that
it just means that that's a group of people. Just like there are many different tribal groups or language groups throughout the whole of Australia. So you have the Gidgee people, you have the Jaru people that are basically from the Halls Creek region, which is where I'd grown up. And
do you still have ties to that group?
Yes, I do. And I also, with my new job, working with Woonan, I'm down there quite regularly.
Because you've been now living in Kununurra for many years.
Well, my parents moved to Kununurra, I think it was about in 1983. So pretty well it's been 30 years since my parents have lived in Kununurra. But as you can imagine, Halls Creek is so close by that we're down there fairly regularly. Obviously, we're down back there to visit family. We're down there to attend funerals and the like. So the Halls Creek community is very familiar and well known to me, as are so many of the situations.
You mentioned your work, and we'll talk about your work a bit later.
Yeah.
But you have got this sort of unique perspective of, as you said, you grew up, you spent your youth in Halls Creek, and now you're back there working. How has that place changed?
Well, I don't think it has really changed very much for the better, which is really sad, but it just makes me feel so passionate.
Small community?
Small community. Yeah, we're talking about maybe 1,500, 2,000 people. And very stable population. It's the same people that live there and who have called Halls Creek home pretty well all their life. And in some ways, I think, Shankar, we've actually regressed, which is a serious problem for us as Aboriginal people. And this is what we're trying to basically turn around.
You're listening to Kimberley Stories on Warrangari Radio 693 AM, where we have a very passionate, a very dedicated community worker here, and in Natasha Short. Natasha, so you mentioned that you are the eldest of a couple of brothers and a sister.
Yes.
What is it like to? I mean, you've got a very close knit family. Has it been difficult, when you've had so many opportunities to travel and to move to stay together? And I mean, do you all come back to the same place?
I think that the opportunities that I've had in my life basically enrich my relationships with my siblings, with my extended family, because I can come back, I think, with a fair amount of confidence or a fair amount of knowledge to say this is what's out there, and look at what we've got. Look at the privileges. Look at the opportunities that are within our community, and what an awesome leverage that we've been given to really do some amazing stuff that we can call ourselves Australians, call ourselves Indigenous Australians. So for me, those things have not intimidated my siblings. I think that's encouraged them or inspired them and helped us to have really good discussions.
You really are sort of a worldly family, aren't you? The four of you, and parents as well. And you've described that family and you've described that life as very blessed.
Definitely.
You've sort of said that, look, this life that we've had and the childhood that we had was very, very different in many ways to the world that was around us at the time. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I think that I think my parents had, and I mean, I'm not saying that my parents didn't have their flaws or didn't have their shortcomings for sure. I'm simply saying that God was a part of our life. I'm saying that there was a lot of stability in our home. We didn't have substance abuse. We didn't have, some of the other serious things that a lot of my peers had to contend with. So that's given us a big privilege, and a good opportunity to be able to excel and do other, have experiences that others haven't had.
We're going to hear more about some of those experiences that Natasha Short has had here on Kimberley Stories 693 Warren Go Radio. Just after this break, do come back. And welcome back to Kimberley Stories 693 Warren Go Radio. We have in the studio Natasha Short. Natasha spent the first 6 years after finishing high school in the Army Reserves, working in different roles, including as a signaller. Tash, you've, as you said, had a variety of experiences, and you've sort of just gone out and seen the world. And one of those experiences was at the age of 19, enlisting in Norforce, which is the Army Reserves Division in Kununurra.
Yes.
What made you decide?
Well, at that time, Shanghai, I just finished high school, and I was actually just looking for a job more than anything. And they were doing a little bit of a recruitment at that time. So I think I just figured, well, look, it's a good opportunity. Why not give it a go?
And welcome back to Kimberley Stories 693 Warren Go Radio. We have in the studio Natasha Short. Natasha spent the first 6 years after finishing high school in the Army Reserves, working in different roles, including as a signaller. Tash, you've, as you said, had a variety of experiences, and you've sort of just gone out and seen the world. And one of those experiences was at the age of 19, enlisting in Norforce, which is the Army Reserves Division in Kununurra.
Yes.
What made you decide?
Well, at that time, Shanghai, I just finished high school, and I was actually just looking for a job more than anything. And they were doing a little bit of a recruitment at that time. So I think I just figured, well, look, it's a good opportunity. Why not give it a go? I was actually there for about 4 years, I believe. And it was just something that I would say was such a great experience for me. And if anybody else had an opportunity to do that, take advantage of it, definitely. It gives you a lot of discipline. It can really challenge you. I mean, I was really out of my league on a lot of different levels there when I first began, and I was doing some training with people who'd really been around for a long time. Even the fitness levels that was required for the position. But it was just, it challenged me and it made me grow.
Just for listeners to know that this is not being funded by the Australian Defence Force Recruiting. These are actual genuine reflections here in the studio. Tash, your mum, Pauline Manning, and your family, what do they think about you as a 19-year-old young girl?
I think they were pretty happy for me to be a part of that. I thought that they thought that was very responsible and a good opportunity, and they really encouraged me. And in fact, I think my brother basically ended up joining the army as well in the years following, and I guess my parents saw that as me having set an example for Jeremy to have done that, and I think they were proud of that.
Fantastic. And we'll certainly hear from Jeremy later. Army Reserves, though, I mean, what does that involve? What does that involve?
Reconnaissance. So basically going out and just doing field work, doing practice rounds, just scouting basically more than anything, Shankar.
Fantastic. Now, you met a very special person in your life.
I did indeed.
The Reserves.
I did. So at that time, me and Jamie were both attending the Reserves.
Jamie is your husband.
Jamie is my husband.
Children.
Father of my children.
Big shout out to Jamie Short. How are you, Jamie? Hope you're well.
He's well. I met Jamie. Basically, Jamie is possibly as opposite to me as I could possibly have found. He's a very good match for me. He's very cool, calm and collected. very, very grounded, very wise, very patient. And so we got to meet each other at that time, got to know each other a bit more, and fell in love and got married, Shankar.
Fantastic.
Living
Now,
happily ever after.
But there was a big journey to that, you know. There was a big journey, wasn't there? There was a couple of years there of a long-distance relationship.
Yeah, there was in the end. I mean, Jamie ended up going down and doing some study in Perth, and basically we were separated for probably about a year or 2 years, and, you know, corresponding.
Writing letters.
Yeah, writing letters the old-fashioned way, and yeah, a few phone calls as well.
Do people still write letters, Tash? I wonder, eh?
I don't know.
Emails now.
I don't know. I know you're a good writer, Shankar. So you probably still write letters.
Jamie has been a big part of your life, hasn't he? In terms
Definitely.
of just the bonding that happened, obviously, that long-distance relationship, but obviously now...
Yeah,
you know,
Jamie is a fantastic human being. In fact, I would honestly say my husband's probably the best human being that I know, and I say that truthfully. He's a wonderful example to me, huge blessing in my life, and you know, he's just recently been away for 3 weeks, and you know, it's always just joyous when he comes home, because to be separated now for, you know, 2 or 3 weeks at a time is too long.
It is a long time, isn't
It's a long time, and I really appreciate my husband, and I really appreciate just his character and his integrity as a human being. I love it.
I want to go back to your time in the reserves. What was it like, Tash, being an Indigenous person in the Army Reserves? Was it the 80s?
Sorry?
Was it the 80s when you were...
No, it was the 90s.
Good God.
So I'm not that old, Shankar.
I really need to stay away from dates on the show. I keep getting it wrong.
Yeah, so basically at that time there was actually quite a large population of Indigenous people that were part of that, because it was a drive within the Kimberley. So there was actually a lot of people, and in fact, funnily enough, just recently in my last position working with community housing, I'd be going up to places like Columbaroo, and I'd find, you know, the men that I was basically working with in Norforce, you know, 15, 18 years ago. And so I've actually still got photographs of all of us at that time, you know, working, doing exercises together. And so it's been tremendous to basically see them again, and just to have that background that you can connect up with them again and say, remember those times that we were together in the Army Reserve, and what an awesome experience that was for us.
Was it challenging though, Tash? Was it
very challenging, very challenging. So,
yeah. I mean, as an Indigenous person, though, was it challenging? Yeah,
definitely. It's not, I guess it's not really a field that a lot of Aboriginal people, although I guess more and more Aboriginal people are going in there now. Maybe at that time, you know, it wasn't a thing that, maybe a lot of Aboriginal people found comfortable to do, because it really did sort of push your boundaries and sort of take you a little bit out of your league, which is always a fantastic experience for all of us, Shankar. You know, we really need to be extended. And I mean, I've had experiences in my life where, you know, I was really out of my comfort zone. And when I look back and I reflect on my life, Shankar, those were the best times in my life that made me, you know, grow and develop to the next level, and really helped me get better.
We are going to talk about that next stage right after this break. You're listening to 693 AM Warrangari Radio. Kimberley Stories here with Shankar and Natasha Short. And welcome back to Kimberley Stories on Warrangari Radio 693, where we have someone in the studio who has one of those people that has just had extremely diverse professional working life, and they're not even 40 yet. She has been in all sorts of remote places, from Columbaroo, Luma, Halls Creek, somewhere as remote as Kununurra, and she's, I guess, had a lot of experiences and a lot of stories to show, haven't you, Natasha?
I do. And before we talk any more, Shankar, I just wanted to say that when I saw the Kimberley Echo article the other day, I was a little bit embarrassed. And I rang my mother and I said, you know, it's a bit embarrassing for me to have an article like that, because I certainly don't see myself as a person that's really achieved great things or is, you know, extraordinary in any regard. There's a lot more, I guess, extraordinary people that live in this town. But I do want to be a role model, and I do hope that I inspire others and encourage others in being who they are.
That's, yeah. Oh, look, I'm sorry, I'm just going to disagree with you. I think you're actually an incredibly inspiring person. I think it's worth celebrating you completely, totally. And yeah, that's how I feel.
All right.
But, and I know
Thank
that there's
you.
many other people that feel exactly the same way. But
Yeah, so Shanka, I've had a lot of experiences in different areas, I guess. And what that has allowed me to become is simply more passionate about changes that really have to happen. So because I've had experiences to be involved with education, to be involved in housing, to be involved in corrective services, to be involved in the army, and I see the problems that are there. And all it's done is just ignited my passion and my conviction and my dedication to basically impact change. Because there's no way that we can continue on the path that we've been going and we're going to experience good things. We're not. We're actually on the road to be defeated, well and truly. You know, and I really believe that we're not born. When you think about Aboriginal people, you think about Australia's firstborn. You think about the first people of this great nation, and I love Australia. I'm a very proud Australian, and I think of Aboriginal people being the first people is a great privilege for us.
but when you talk about being on a road to being defeated, when I stare across the studio here, and I guess what I felt that the article at least tried to convey is that there's someone here that's so far from being defeated. There's someone here that
definitely.
is absolutely all about achievement, all about striving, all about a commitment to what she does.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's worth telling, isn't it?
Definitely. And I do see myself as a person that is on a road to being more and more victorious. I totally believe that. I totally believe that I'm a very privileged person. I'm a very blessed person. And I want that for other people as well. I want the good quality of life that I'm living and the enjoyment that I have in my own personal life to be experienced by all people.
There's a quote from you about that you describe a cup overfilling and in your life.
Yes.
And you then taking that excess and sharing it. What do you mean by that?
I simply mean that because I have so many good things in my life and I'm so rich, I guess, in all the areas that matter, it allows me to be able to give out to others. And I think if you yourself as a person, if your cup is half full, how can you possibly give to anybody else? You're so focused on your own lack. You're focused on your own need. You can't think about others because you're in distress yourself. And I think by contrast, when you're in a place of overflowing, of being blessed, of having an abundance, you can share that with other people. And, you know, one of the ways that we can share with other people, Shanka, and it doesn't cost a thing, is simply to give people words. To give people words of encouragement that can help them to just know that they're doing a good job, to help them to know that they're valuable, to help them to know that they're, society couldn't do without them. We need them to contribute to their community and to be the best that they can be, to be an example and an inspiration to others.
Let's say you're a community worker that's sitting at home listening to this show right now and you're tired, maybe feeling burnt out. What would your advice be to that community worker in terms of, trying to get them to be motivated and to keep pushing on despite all the hardships that you talked about earlier, about the difficulties and the fact that you might not necessarily be able to see light so easily?
Yeah.
What would your words be to
I'm
them?
looking at a beautiful quote that you actually have in this studio that I've just seen this morning, and I'm going to quote it for you, okay? If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Martin Luther King. Love it?
That's pretty powerful words, aren't they? Powerful
You
words.
know, that's Martin Luther King is an example to us of how powerful words can be. You see, even though words can be spoken many, many years ago, they still resonate and they can still impact years and years later.
Yeah.
So you think about Martin Luther King. This year, we celebrated 50 years where he said, I have a dream. And when you listen to that speech today, you can still identify with that.
And certainly with Martin Luther King, Pauline Manning, Natasha Short, all these people have very important stories, don't they? And those stories are important as well, aren't they? In motivating people, inspiring people.
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
Yes. I think perhaps sometimes also we don't realize that maybe we're being an inspiration to others You know, we
Absolutely.
don't realize that maybe the words of encouragement that we speak to someone, they'll recall the next week, really when they need it.
And so what you're really saying, Tash, is that we should absolutely be profiling people like you on the
No.
Kimberley Echo and celebrating
I'm saying
achievements.
use your words to be an encouragement and a blessing to other people.
Absolutely. We're going to come back after a break. We're listening to the very inspiring, hardly embarrassing story of Natasha Short, and right after this on Kimberley Stories, Warringah Radio 693 AM. You're listening to Kimberley Stories on Warringah Radio 693 AM. We have in the studio with us a person who is a mum.
Mm-hmm.
She is a full-time community worker.
Mm-hmm.
She is a wife. She is a volunteer. She is all sorts of things. Tash, how do you actually juggle all of that?
I think you have to be very purposeful in what you're actually trying to achieve. So there are a lot of opportunities that can come your way if you're a person that is motivated, or you're a person that's passionate. And I think you really have to put it in sometimes and just say, look, what am I trying to achieve here? I narrow it down to just a few different projects. And for me right now, my responsibilities include working, being a mother, being a wife and mother, and just having a couple of key things within my community that I feel very passionate about. So I don't want to try and juggle too much. I've got enough on my plate with just a few things that I'm really interested in.
Both your kids are homeschooled.
They are.
And that's an interesting choice that you've made, and you and Jamie have both made to basically homeschool them for a while.
Yes. I basically made the suggestion to Jamie in the very beginning, which was about 4 years back. I guess for us, homeschooling was simply about taking control of our children's education, taking control of the environment, so we knew, who they were interacting with and what sort of what was influencing them, because I think kids are very impressionable. And so we just figured that it was a great opportunity, again, for our kids to learn under their parents.
For a person yourself who has gone through a whole range of experiences when you went to school
Yes.
in Halls Creek
Yes.
and then Kununurra,
Yep.
and you feel that you've learnt so much
Mm-hmm.
from being exposed to so much,
Yes.
do you feel that they should go to school at some point to actually have some of the exposures and experiences that perhaps
Well,
you
it's
might have had?
interesting. We were just talking about this the other day, and I think there's been quite a regression in the schools. I don't know whether other maybe educators would possibly agree, but I feel that there's been a decline in children's behaviour. It's made it a lot more difficult for teachers to be able to do their jobs effectively, and I guess schools are becoming a little bit more institutionalised compared to when I was at school. I mean, I really enjoyed my schooling experience. I really had a great time. I obviously socialised with others. I had fun. I really enjoyed my teachers, and they seemed to be very passionate about what they did. The teachers that I had seemed to be, that was their calling, that was their gift, and they really got involved in that. And I think we're just living in a different generation now where that's really it's been a lot harder to recreate that. And so for that reason, we've just figured our kids can do better under our own instruction. And it's not just about academics for us, Shanky. It's also about character development and having our children become very comfortable, within who they are and the fact that they're important within their own right, and they've got gifts and abilities that can help to contribute to their society around them as well.
Would you ever want them to go to school?
No, I think we're pretty happy with the system that we're employing at the moment. I think Jamie's very comfortable to homeschool, and he's a natural teacher, so he's very good at teaching our children. And
that is a key part of that for you, isn't it? That you have someone as wonderful as Jamie to
Yes.
actually be part of that. And
yes.
yeah. What's it like, Tash, to travel as far away as places like Columbaroo and Halls Creek, or places, and not see your family or kids for perhaps several days because of work?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely difficulties, especially in being a working mother. I think there's a lot of it's physically more demanding. You still have responsibilities at home. You've got responsibilities at work, within the community as well. It is a bit of a juggling act, and you've got to be very careful not to, like I said earlier, take on too many projects that burn you out. You really can't do 10 things. You can do maybe three or four things well, and that is what I try to focus on doing.
Do you think that your kids, they're both in primary school sort of
Yes, they're
age
both
now?
in primary school.
Or that age, yeah. Do they have an understanding, do you think, of the kind of work that you're doing?
Probably not. I think as time goes on and they get a little bit older, they'll be able to see exactly what I'm involved with on a greater level and have a bigger appreciation of my big picture or my vision that I have for Aboriginal people for the future.
We're with Natasha Short here on Kimberley Stories, Warrangari Radio. We're talking about the family work balance. It's not easy, is it? It's not easy. It's not easy to get it right.
But it's doable.
It's doable. It's all about priorities and structure and all that sort of stuff that I absolutely have nothing of, and I'm sure I'll learn from you, Tash. We're going to go to a song and come back right after this.
This is Danielle, the pharmacist at Kununurra Hospital. I have a message about side effects of medicines. Side effects happen with lots of medicines and can be small things like bellyache or headache, but some side effects can be very serious. Sometimes they happen because medicines are taken the wrong way, taken with grog, or taken by someone who they're not meant for. If you want to stop one of your medicines because of a side effect, talk to a doctor so they can think about ways to make the side effects smaller, or use other medicines or other ways of helping you stay healthy.
And we're back after that short break. We are with Natasha Short here on Warrangari Radio, Kimberley Stories. Tash, you had a big role to play at these Kimberley Aboriginal Achievement Awards a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I had a part.
What do awards like that mean to the people that get them, do you think?
I think it's becoming more and more important. I think that a lot of Aboriginal people, they don't really... they're so shame-based, I guess, that to receive awards is just, it's embarrassing, or it's to be singled out or to be acknowledged or honoured as an individual is tricky for some people. It's sort of not an easy thing to do. But because we've been running now for so long, it's becoming more, accepted that, look, this is what we need to do in our community to basically say thank you to the people who are doing well and to really honour them. And it's really important.
For those of us who were there, your introduction or your descriptions of Ian Trust were extremely moving. You really transported us into that journey that's been Ian Trust's life. What's the role that Ian Trust has sort of played in your life, do you think? Okay,
so Ian is basically one of my mentors. I think Ian has been around for a very long time and would have a world of experience to transfer to someone like me who's obviously a lot younger than him. He could basically show me where to avoid pitfalls and just really be able to teach me a great deal of things. I really do admire Ian, and people also like Annie Olive. I teamed up with Olive Knight on that night. She had basically written a song about Ian.
Ian Trust is, by the way, the founding director, is that right?
Yeah, he's the founding... a co-founder of Wunan.
Wunan Foundation here in Kununurra.
So he's the chair at the moment. I think Ian has been a very stable person for a very long time. And when I think about people who are in there having made a commitment to this area for a very long time, and to not only that, Shankar, but also to still be enthusiastic after a long, long time.
And that is very important, isn't it? So that you have somebody like Ian Trust who can actually be there and see change and just watch that change and help that change and be involved in that change for a really long period of time.
And in some circumstances, Shank, it's actually declined, it's actually regressed. But when I look at people like Ian, I look at people like Olive, they're still enthusiastic after so long. They haven't given up. They haven't lost the vision. They haven't lost the enthusiasm or the belief that we can indeed get better as a race of people. And that is what inspires me, and that is what I admire and encourages me, because for me to be at this age, I've already been in this scene for 20 years. And I can see that it's a burnout role. I can see that it's exhausting. And yet something just continues to drive us as it's driven others that have gone before me, and they're still encouraged. And I love that, and I admire that, and I'm so pleased to be a mouthpiece that honors people who are worthy to be honored.
You're listening to Kimberley Stories, Warringah Radio 693 AM, where I absolutely have the amazing privilege of listening to Natasha Short. Natasha, another person in your life that's really had a big impact on you is your mother, Pauline Manning, who was awarded the Elder of the Year award. She's also been another massive sort of constant in your life, who's always been there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so my mother has got lots of good qualities about herself, and that was lovely that she recently won that award. She was completely embarrassed. She was
she's
did not want to be a recipient of that. Didn't feel that she had made really significant contributions, actually not even in town. And so I collected the award on her behalf. But my mother is, I guess, also been very stable. Also, being a very generous person, I think, to other people, and definitely does have a big compassion towards others, and definitely will go out of her way, above and beyond the call of duty to basically do things for other people. So very hospitable, very generous, and
It's really good to see a lot of young people as well, a lot of high achievers at the awards night.
Yes.
One of those being Kia Dowell.
Yeah, I think Kia is a very exceptional young lady, and I think she's a beautiful speaker, and I was really inspired by her, I guess, that night, and I think she's doing a tremendous amount for the community, and best wishes to her.
Interesting point that Kia raised in her speech, which was people motivate themselves or need to motivate themselves, but leaders inspire, or the role of leaders is to inspire. Do you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. It's a leader's job to inspire people. It's a leader's job to basically get other people on board with the vision. Listen, people, this is where we're going to. This is where we are right now, but this is where we want to go to. Will you jump on board with us and travel with us on this journey to arrive at this destination? Are you interested? We
have a truly inspiring community leader here in this studio at Warringah Radio. It's Natasha Short, coming back after this break. Kimberley Stories with Shankar. Natasha, this program, Kimberley Stories, is now streaming live on the net. It's being listened to right across the Kimberley, but also we've got friends in places like a little town called Melbourne on the east coast. Got a couple of friends there listening in. We've got Miss Susan McGee, as far away from here as possible, in a place called City of Casey, managing the Casey North Community Information Support Service. Big hello to her as she suffers from hay fever, so we hope that she gets through the hay fever season well. But keep listening online, on the radio, all the many ways that this radio station gets out there. Tash, you have travelled around, haven't you? You've left Kimberley and you've gone and seen other places and other cities and towns.
I have, yeah.
Greece being one of them.
Been to Greece, been to Africa, been to America. I've been to a lot of the islands north of Australia. It's been a fantastic experience for me to have all those opportunities to go and see how the rest of the world lives, and also to just learn more about other cultures and to truly appreciate what we have here. I just love coming home. Every single time I come back, I just think, how honoured are we to live in such a beautiful part of the world. The privileges here, the freedom that we have, the wealth that we have, the comforts that we enjoy, and I love it.
And you've been to very remote parts of the world, haven't you, in terms of rural communities and things?
Yes.
And one of those places is Papua New Guinea and Noomba, which is a small village in Papua New Guinea. What can you tell me about, and please don't leave me hanging here, what can you tell me about bras?
I can tell you that I got a phone call earlier. Oh, sorry, would have been last year. And I got a phone call from a friend of a friend, and she said, look, she was from the charity organisation known as Uplift. And she said, could you do with 3,000 bras? And I just saw that as a, divine provision for me to get a hold of those bras and sell them for $5 each to raise money for a trip that I was doing to Papua New Guinea earlier this year in May, when I took some Aboriginal women with me. And we spoke at a ladies' convention in Numba. And it basically provided a lot of the financial needs that we...
So you had all these bras that came from the aptly named organisation Uplift.
Yes.
And you sold them?
Yes.
To raise. So you sold them pretty much to...
I basically sold them to sponsor the sponsor the trip, but to sponsor the food expense for the 500 ladies that came into the village to participate in our women's convention. We're talking about poverty-stricken people here. We're talking about people that don't have welfare. Talking about people who basically, if you don't grow, you don't eat. It's just that simple. And so I really wanted to go there and really just give them something. And actually one of my colleagues at Wunan suggested this, great idea to write on the back of a card, women in Australia write on the back of a card, and I take it over to Papua New Guinea, and I also clipped $1, the equivalent of $1, which is 2 kina, to each card, and I could give that to the lady over there, as well as buy her food for those 3 days that she was in the village for the conference. And to me, Shanka, and actually the theme of the conference was the power of giving. So I spoke about the power of giving, over the 3 days, and then this culminated in us giving out these cards. So it was a demonstration of what I'd just been speaking about, and it was very powerful. I mean, even the other ladies that I went with sort of said, this is like the best part of the trip, because the women who received those cards received them with such joy and such big smiles on their faces. It just really does something wonderful to you as a human being to share with others. I love that.
What motivated you to take along a group of Indigenous women?
This is actually the second time I've done this. I've also taken a group of women over to Africa with me. This was probably 5-6 years ago, I guess. It motivates me because I want my countrymen, the people, my peers, people who are within my community, to get a real revelation of how other people live. So we can stop complaining about what we don't have and start appreciating what we do have, and not just that, but be willing to share what we have with other people. That's really what I want, and I want to impact change. And sometimes we impact change by realizing, hey, we have got so many good things. What are we doing with it? Where is our responsibility here to share what we have and to do all the good that we can with what we've got?
You're listening to Natasha Short here on Warringah Radio, 693 AM on Kimberley Stories with Shanka. Tash, you've travelled, as you said, all over the world and across Australia.
Yeah, around Australia.
Why do you keep coming back to Kununurra?
Kununurra is my home. I guess the Kimberley. Somebody sang a song, anywhere in the Kimberley is my home. It's so true. It's anywhere in the Kimberley is my home. I know people everywhere in the Kimberleys. And it's my backyard. It's it's the place that I travel around and I think this is where I belong. This is my established boundaries, and I love it.
And I hope that message goes out to all the people listening across Australia and everywhere else. And we encourage people to come visit the Kimberley, move up here if you can as well. Not thinking of anyone in particular, but it's been a great show. It's been a great hour. And thank you, Natasha, for sharing so
Shanka.
much with us. And join us next week on same time, same place. We're going to be talking to Lizzie from the Sons of Rut in Wyndham. Great little group doing some amazing work. So tune in. But yeah, thanks so much, Natasha, and we'll catch you all later. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.